The truth is that ketosis has nothing to do with fat loss. Zero to do with fat loss. It has to do with what your body uses for energy, using fat or using carbohydrates. Now, if you don't understand physiology that well, you're like, but Ted, you just said it had nothing to do with fat loss, and you're telling me I could use fat for energy instead of sugar. That sounds like it has to do with fat loss, Ted. Do you understand what you're saying? And yes, I do.
What's up, my friend, and welcome back to another episode of Legendary Life Podcast. I'm health expert Ted Rice, your host, and today I'm coming to you from Bangkok, Thailand, and I'm super excited to share today's episode because it is another Friday Q&A, so Friday question and answer session. And if you're wondering, well, what about Real Talk Friday? Well, that's a thing too, but I'm kind of experimenting here. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just taking it one day at a time. And so I really love answering questions because it lets me know where people are coming from. And I'm getting these great questions from Instagram. And I would love to hear from you, the podcast listener, you. Do you like the Q&As better or the Real Talk Fridays better? I would love to hear from you, or maybe you like them both and want me to alternate every week. I would love to hear, what do you think? Hit me up at ted@legendarylifepodcast.com and write me an email, or hit me up on Twitter, or just type in Ted Rice, you'll be able to find it. Also at Ted Rice on Instagram. And remember, my last name is R-Y-C-E, not R-I-C-E. That's something I've been dealing with my whole life, the whole rice, like you're Ted Rice, like the rice that you eat, like rice. No, it's R with a Y. It doesn't mean anything to my knowledge. So that's the situation. And if this is your first time listening and you're really confused about what's going on, well, this show is all about clearing up health and fitness confusion by breaking down science-based information on how to lose fat, prevent disease, live a longer, healthier life. So does it sound like I'm reading that? Because I am, because I'm like one of those people I can never remember like exactly the tagline. So that's what this podcast is about. And if that's what you're interested in, then you're in the right place. Make sure you hit the subscribe button wherever you listen to podcasts. And every time one of my interviews or solo episodes goes live, you'll be the first to know. So I got to tell you, I'm back in Bangkok, and what an amazing city. I forgot how much I like it here. And before we jump into the Q&A, I just want to share a quick thing that's relevant to nutrition, because the food culture in Asia in general is very different. And if you think that carbs make you fat, throughout the majority of Asia that I've traveled to, which is quite a few countries in Southeast Asia, haven't been to East Asia, which would be Korea, Japan, China, but that will be coming up eventually. So one of the things that's super cool is the food culture. In fact, I'm living in a condominium because I don't stay in hotels. Hotels are more expensive usually, or they're not as good, or both sometimes. So I stay in Airbnbs and condominiums, and they're more quiet and more relaxed. And this particular place where I'm staying on Newt 50, En Newt BTS station, if you're familiar with Bangkok at all, on Sukhumvit 50, is this condominium that I'm staying at. And I walk downstairs and there's this place that serves chicken and rice, wonton soup, and barbecued pork. Now, if this place were in the US, you'd walk by it the way that it looks. And also, if you've ever been to Asia, they got the chickens hanging out in this little glass case. They have the chickens, like the full chickens that are boiled. They've got everything kind of hanging there, and the pork hanging there, and just incredible food. But you eat so many carbs here because that's just a major sort of food group. It's, you know how we eat meat in the States, that's like, okay, meat and potatoes maybe. It's really about noodles or rice being the main dish. And the other things are accompanying the rice. So I get this amazing wonton soup, and it's 30 baht, which is the Thai currency, and it's $1. And it's the most amazing wonton soup you've ever had in your life. So let's get on to today's questions. Question number 1 and 2 come from Tasha from Instagram. Tasha, really appreciate our back and forths, and I really appreciate you asking questions every time I do one of these on Instagram. So she asked, and also I love doing it here because on an Instagram answer, I have to be super brief and short and really can't expand on what I would really say. So if you could give only one best piece of advice about weight loss, what would it be? And I know what you're asking. You're like, I need to lose weight. What's the number one thing I could do? Okay. Just tell me that. So the answer to that would be to track your macros. Use pen and paper, use your note app on your phone, or use a tracking software like MyFitnessPal. That would be my number one thing. If we're talking strictly about tactics. But here's the reality. Some of you are going to be like, oh, is that the secret? I'm going to go right now. I got it. I'm going to download it. I'm going to do it. You're going to do it. And the vast majority of people don't figure it out. In fact, I get a lot of people who've been tracking their food on MyFitnessPal or Lose It or one of the other apps, and they're not getting results. And it leads a lot of people into thinking that, oh, this calorie thing doesn't work, or calories don't work. Look at my calories. Look at them. I track them all, and people just don't understand. So my real piece of advice that is not tactical, my real piece of advice is to hire a consultant to help you, like me. In other words, hire me is what I'm telling you to do, or someone like me. If you're like, yeah, I like you, Ted. I like your podcast, but yeah, I get it. But hire someone to help you, please. Stop trying to do things on your own. It would be my number one piece of advice. Whenever you're not getting results in somewhere in your life, stop trying to do it on your own. I mean, I would never be able to do my online business if I had to figure all this stuff out on my own. I've invested in coaches. There's even one thing that I want to share with you real quick. I want you to see if you can guess who this is who's speaking.
Everyone needs a coach. It doesn't matter whether you're a basketball player, a tennis player, a gymnast, or a bridge player. My bridge coach, Sharon Osburgh, says there are more pictures of the back of her head than anyone else's in the world. Sorry, Sharon. Here you go. We all need people who will give us feedback. That's how we improve.
Did you figure it out? That's Bill Gates, one of the richest and smartest men who's ever lived, ever. And he's talking about the power of coaching. Now, in that regard, he was talking about teachers needing coaching to improve the educational system. But he even mentioned personally that he has coaches in his life. Specifically there, he mentioned that he has a coach for bridge. So that would be my number one piece of advice. This goes from any area of your life. If you're trying to figure it out and you're not getting the results, that is the fastest way to get the results. So let's move on to the next question. What are the best exercises to focus on when you have limited workout time? Now, again, here's one of these questions that, while I appreciate you asking, because again, it shows me where you're thinking, there's no such thing as best exercises. It's not about best exercises. I will say this, there are nuances, biomechanical nuances that can make one exercise better than another. But for the most part, there's not best exercises. There is, are you working your muscle to exhaustion? And are you improving your performance on that exercise? In other words, adding more reps and weight over time. Has nothing to do with that. Oh, what about leg presses? Are leg presses, is the plate loaded leg press, better than the machine leg press, better than the Smith machine squat, better than the free weight squat. None of that stuff matters as much as you think. And if I sound a little condescending, like I know this stuff and you're so foolish for not knowing it, is only because I used to believe in all this bullshit that people used to say, oh, got to do free weight squats. You're not working out if you're not squatting. That said, what you want to do is you want to focus on exercises where you can, again, work until muscular exhaustion and add reps and weight over time. Now, some exercises, it's going to be harder to get more reps and weight over time. So it's better, this is one of the things that I was talking about, to focus on bigger movements where you can add weight over time, especially for women whose strength may not jump up as quickly as, say, a man's. Although that's not always true. I know plenty of women that are much stronger than me and many other men. But in general, if you're just getting started here, that would, because those people don't listen to this podcast. They're listening to like the CrossFit on Steroids podcast or whatever, podcast they listen to. So again, keep the principles in mind and stop looking for best exercises. It's not about that at all. This is from Noble Salvegi. I guess that's Noble Savage. Don't worry, I'm not going to name all these names here. Should I jump on this cycle to speed up the fat loss process? Now, this is this idea that more exercise is always better for fat loss. It isn't necessarily. We hear a lot about, it's 80% nutrition and like 20% exercise. Actually, you know what? It's 76.83% nutrition, and I forgot what I just said. Whatever the rest of it would be, adding up to 100. But we hear these things, and it really depends on the person. You know who says it's 90% nutrition and 10% exercise, or 80% nutrition, 20% exercise? Who do you think says that? People who are working super hard in the gym, not getting results, then learned how to do nutrition, and then they got results, and they're like, it's all about nutrition, bro. I figured it out. But guess what? There's plenty of people who have dialed in their nutrition and they're not interested in doing exercise at all. And those people, and they're struggling, and it's terrible to do that, by the way. You'll end up losing a lot of your weight from muscle. Those people need exercise badly. So it really depends on the person in the situation. And if you're working super hard in the gym already, then adding cycling, it might help. But the easier way to do it is learn the right principles of nutrition. Okay, that's what it's about. Learn fat loss nutrition basics. Let's move on to the next question. How do you keep your joints healthy? Whoa, that's a great question. This is something that we all struggle with eventually if we're hard charging people in the gym, doing our best to stay in shape, working hard, lifting our weights, doing our running, doing martial arts in my case. And man, joints healthy. So here are the things. Number one, you need to manage systemic inflammation levels. And I'm not going to go into that right now, but a lot of it has to do with just getting body fat off you, good sleep, and managing your stress well. It's certainly not about popping pills. Everybody asks me, what's the best supplement for shoulder pain? It's like, there ain't no supplement for shoulder pain, homie. You gotta change your ways. You gotta change your mindset. It's one of those things that when people ask me about supplements for joint pain, it's just like, hey, I'm doing a workout that's hurting my joints and I'd like to keep doing it instead of changing my workout. So is there any supplements you can recommend to help me keep doing my dumb and excessively brutal workout routine on my joints? So here's the thing also, right? So we talked about sustain. And by the way, in case you're taking that personally, that was me. I'm hurting all over. Actually, I'm doing pretty well these days, but I do have injuries that I have to constantly manage. So here's what I'll tell you. Manage systemic inflammation, because we know now that running, exercise, it's not really the cause of arthritis, of joint damage. It's systemic inflammation. Now, that systemic inflammation could be coming from your body being out of whack because too much body fat secretes inflammatory chemicals, especially visceral fat. Could be not enough sleep, could be very poor diet in terms of food choices, micronutrient issues. The other thing that I would say that I would say quickly is, if your joints are hurting, take a break, right? Like I did a really hard Muay Thai class, kickboxing class, and I don't get to decide how the class goes. These guys don't speak English real well, and they're real enthusiastic. And I hit the pads. I look good when I hit the pad. I'm not good at it, Muay Thai, just to be clear. But when I hit the pads, I hit them hard. I've been doing it for a long time, and they really get excited because usually they get a lot of people who aren't very good in there. And they just drive me into the ground. In fact, my whole thing right now is staying in good enough shape so I can survive those classes without getting injured. So what I do is, when I get pushed too hard, I take a break. What does that mean, though, taking a break? Well, I still exercise, but I do exercises that help sort of restore the functioning of my body, especially, I have a herniated disc in my back that crippled me for a little while. I have herniated disc in my neck, hip problems, shoulder problems, triceps tendonitis, so many things. And so know when to take a break, and don't take a break from exercise, but do lower intensity exercises, things that like you would find in physical therapy for that whatever area that's bothering you, and cardiovascular exercise. One of the best things I think you can ever do is just focus on getting your heart rate up, getting that circulation going, and getting that movement in, whether that's taking a walk outside or, like I did this morning, hopping on the treadmill and walking for 50 minutes while I was listening to something, which is another hack. That's a hack that you can use in your life, a life hack, if you will, but seriously, that's what I have my coaching clients do and what I do personally. So that's a really good question. And it really should be like a whole episode unto itself, but I've got to move on. How to lose fat? Sit-ups, right? How to lose fat? ? Sit-ups. How about hell no? In fact, one of the things that my coaching clients, they're like, why are there no ab exercises in my program, please? I'm really concerned that I'm not going to see abs if there's no ab exercises. You see how that logic works, Ted? I know you've been doing this for 20 years, but do you see how that works? I want abs, so where are the ab exercises to give me the abs? So, right? That's what now, nobody's ever told me like that, but I know that's kind of what they're thinking, right? And if any of my coaching clients are listening right now, I love you. So definitely not. In fact, ab exercises, I'm not doing any ab exercises right now, and I have abs. If you have enough time to do them, do your abdominal exercises, sure. Work your butt, work your quads, work your chest, work your shoulders, work your back. And if you got time after all of those other big bang areas, sure, do some abs, but it's not going to make you or break you. If you want to lose fat, of course, right? Dial in your nutrition, make sure you're in a calorie deficit, managing your energy balance, and that is how you lose fat. Stay away from abs classes and throw a medicine ball at people who try to suck you into like, hey, just try this 20-minute ab routine. What are you doing 20 minutes of abs? Completely ridiculous. And by the way, I've used to teach ab classes, so, that's how you learn. So stay away from abs classes, abs exercises, unless it's something that you love doing, but don't expect big results from it. And then this last question, I don't even know why she asked me this. She must not know me very well. How long can we go on ketosis for fat loss? Whoa, you do not know me if you're asking this question. Of course, she doesn't listen to the podcast, most likely. She's asking something like that. And so, but for your benefit, It's a great question. So ketosis, unless you've been living under a rock with no Wi-Fi, because you could still live under a rock and still have Wi-Fi and still know what the ketogenic diet is, right? So many people talk about it. I should become a keto proponent and just like, hey, do keto. It's all you need to do. Go into ketosis, eat fat to burn fat. But the truth is that ketosis has nothing to do with fat loss. Zero to do with fat loss. It has to do with what your body uses for energy, using fat or using carbohydrates. Now, if you don't understand physiology that well, you're like, but Ted, you just said it had nothing to do with fat loss, and you're telling me I could use fat for energy instead of sugar. That sounds like it has to do with fat loss, Ted. Do you understand what you're saying? And yes, I do. And let me do my best to explain it very briefly because this is our last question. I want to wrap things up. The fat loss is caused by an energy deficit, a calorie deficit, burning more energy than you take in. So ketosis has to do with what energy substrate you're using. Are you using ketones and fat, or are you using carbohydrates and fat? Because you use both. Like right now, I'm using fat because I'm not doing anything very hard for exercise. But when you start pushing your muscles, the muscles start burning. When you're lifting weights, working them to exhaustion, like I told you to do to get results, and how exercises don't really matter. It's working your muscles to exhaustion. That exhausted feeling, that's when your muscles start using sugar for energy, stored carbohydrate in your muscles called glycogen. And ketosis has to do with, okay, well, we're going to lower your carbs so that you don't have any of that glycogen stuff or have very low levels, and you're going to have to use other things. And by the way, that's why the ketogenic diet has been shown to be pretty bad for performance when it comes to sports that require, a lot of glycogen usage. So mixed sports, mixed martial arts, that type of thing. So you don't need to go on ketosis at all. And asking me about the ketogenic diet, it's really not even something, I understand it well enough to talk to you about it in the way that I'm talking right now, but I've never done it. Well, let's put it like this. I'm sure I've been in ketosis before doing some of my experiments with nutrition, but I never went out of my way to measure it because it's not relevant to fat loss at all. Zero relevance. Don't let anybody try to tell you differently. They may say the ketogenic diet is great for fat loss, but what they really mean is that if there is one benefit to the ketogenic diet, and I'm really, really doing my best to be devil's advocate to what I just said, is that being on the ketogenic diet seems to help some people, not all, but some people with hunger. But that's how it's good for fat loss. Otherwise, it makes zero difference. In fact, most people want to eat carbs. All my coaching clients losing body fat right now, I have not used the ketogenic diet with one of them. In fact, if someone was like, hey, Ted, I really want to work with you, but I got to do the ketogenic diet. Will you help me through it? Probably wouldn't do it. I don't know enough about it. And I've never done it personally. Not really. You'd have to really convince me that you wanted me to do it, and you would be an experiment for me because I've never done it before. So I'm not someone you should ask too much about the ketogenic diet, other than, yeah, is it good for fat loss? For some people, yes, and other people it doesn't work that well. Why? Because they end up eating. It's easy to overeat fat. And you'll see a lot of people on Instagram, they lose a bunch of weight because they were so overweight, and then they hit a plateau and they don't get beyond it because they're slamming back cheese-covered ground meat with bacon pieces and eggs all at the same time. Okay, and sausage all at the same time. All cooked in butter all at the same time. It's so disgusting. That hashtag dirty keto. It's so disgusting. Please don't do that. Please. Because it's also a little bit sad, to be honest. So completely irrelevant. And listen, I'm going to wrap up now. But if you're struggling with this stuff, I'll refer to what I said. You can try to figure it out on your own. Don't let me talk you out of trying. Some of you might get it, but the reality is most people, we know from studies, 80 to 95% of people, depending on what study you want to look at, they lose weight, they gain it back. And what I see with people is they're not even losing weight. A lot of the clients who come to me, they're working out 6 days a week and they're gaining weight. And it ain't muscle, or at least not all of it. So if you want me to help you, go to legendarylifeprogram.com/apply. Sign up for a call. Let's talk. If you're right for the program, I'll invite you in. If you're not, I won't invite you in. It's not a sales pitch. Someone said, "Oh, you had a great pitch there. I see what you're doing." It's not a pitch. It's what it is. It is what it is. If I could go back and not let some of the people into the program who I'd let into the program, I would go back and do it because it costs me money. And when I'm like, oh my gosh, this client is going crazy, it costs me mental energy, and I never want to work with people who I don't think are right for me or for what I do. But if you resonate with my approach, and if you're like, well, he really seems like he knows what he's talking about. I'm really struggling here. Let's hop on a call and let's talk. And a lot of people, by the way, tell me, look, I just tell me how much it is. I just don't want to waste your time on the call. It's not wasting my time. It's what I do. Okay. I'm happy if you leave the call and you take something away and I don't think you were right, or you didn't think it was right for you. You left the call. Happy. I'm happy, seriously happy to do it. Okay. I love talking to people. I wish, in fact, if I'm really honest, I wish I had more feedback from you right now, you listening to this podcast. I wish I had more feedback from you. That's the truth. So again, you want to join the program? Think that it might be the breakthrough that you've been looking for? It just might be, because it's awesome. The program's awesome. I mean, it's taken me 20 years to put it together, right? And go to legendarylifeprogram.com/apply. But about giving me feedback, shoot me an email, ted@legendarylifepodcast.com, or find me on Instagram or Twitter and let me know. Give me a shout out, give me a mention. Let's get a community going. Let's get some communication going here. All right. Love you. Have an amazing weekend. Talk to you soon.